Hi and welcome to SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now, leave any comments in the comments section. Please like and share the video as well. We've got a brand new WWE Universal Champion in Roman Reigns. Keith Lee beat Randy Orton clean. We've even got new women's tag team champions. It is Sasha no belt. So plenty to get through from WWE Payback. Going to give you the results and my reactions and review to the show. We're starting off with the kickoff show, and there's no Renee Young. Of course, we know she's left WWE. There was a little shout given there saying that she is missed already. We had the Riott Squad against the Iconics as the kickoff match. The Riott Squad did pick up the victory. Storytelling throughout this match, of course, whether they still can trust each other, Ruby and Liv, which was a bit confusing. This story seems to have been almost on repeat for the last 6 weeks or so, which is a shame, really. But finally, it looks like we have got a resolution anyway to this. The Riott Squad, or we should say now the Living Riott, actually picked up the victory here over the Iconics with a nice double team maneuver. Of course, Liv hitting her finisher into Ruby's kick for the 1, 2, 3. And then they confirmed that they are officially a team going forward. Now, I must admit, this match was a bit sloppy for me. Storytelling attempted, was done okay, but for me, just felt, like I said, a bit recycled. For me, this has to be a candidate for one of the worst matches of the year, and that's nothing really to be said very nicely about this match, unfortunately. It's certainly, if you missed the kickoff, in my opinion, I'm afraid on this occasion, you didn't miss much. I mean, the ladies are capable of putting together a good match, but on this evening, something just didn't quite connect, in my opinion. So, but the most important thing is that we've built up what could be new challengers in the tag team division. Again, we are sort of working on making new teams here, so that is certainly something we could say positively and progressing. And the right team won. Ruby and Liv now hopefully can go into the tag team championship picture. They should never have been broken up to begin with, in my opinion. The Riott Squad was always stronger as a unit rather than separated. Of course, we don't have Sarah Logan around these days, but I think Ruby and Liv can be a strong asset getting TV time as a team, as Living Riott going forward on Monday Night Raw. Anyway, let's go to the main show, and the first match that we had was the United States Championship, Apollo Crews versus Lashley. Slow and steady start this one, but it really picked up for the last few minutes. We had Bobby Lashley sort of beating down on Apollo for a long time, and Apollo coming straight back in towards the finish there with a couple of nice German suplexes. It looked like Apollo was getting close where he could maybe pick up the victory, but in the end fell into the full Lashley. And what I liked about this full Nelson that was used, that actually Lashley took Apollo down onto their backs and actually wrapped his legs around, so there was no way that Apollo could escape for the tap out, and we've got a brand new US champion. Next was Big E against Sheamus, and a steady match. I really enjoyed this one as well between these two. I must admit, this was probably the match of the undercard of the evening. I thought that it was quite technical in places. I love the fact that Sheamus was working on Big E's leg, but Big E managed to make the big comeback here and eventually picked up the win with the big ending. The thing with this match, it was kind of obvious, but the thing is that it still does what it needs to do. Big E now actually gets a big solo win over someone that's a former champion, someone that's done quite a lot in WWE as a single star over the years, and it propels Big E further up the card. So hopefully the momentum can continue for Big E, can continue to be pushed strongly going forward. They continue the show, the Talking Smack segment, where Big E says how, you know, he can take himself seriously. He's going to go with his own way, how he's going to get to the top, and he's going to make his way there. Well, he's going in the right direction, so quite pleased with how this turned out. Matt Riddle was next with a backstage promo, and it seemed, or interview we should say, and yeah, Corbin sent out a tweet saying that he's going to prove that Riddle didn't belong in a WWE ring, a loser, just like he is at home, which for me, I didn't really like that tweet, to be brutally honest, mainly because it's a bit close to home with all the speaking out movement stuff going on. It just feels not right, in my opinion, for it to be brought up into light onto TV at this point. But anyway, we had the match itself. I suppose it added a personal touch to it, if you must, but Riddle coming to the ring, was about to kick off the flip-flops and was straight off clothesline by Corbin, straight into this match. A series of rest holds from Corbin, but Riddle did come back again for another predictable victory. The flying bro off the top rope is what give Riddle the victory, and if we take something positive out of this again, Riddle, of course, is an emerging babyface on SmackDown, picks up the victory and actually makes him established among the roster, beating someone that was in a rivalry with Roman Reigns at the start of the year in King Corbin. But it doesn't look like the feud is finished between Corbin and Riddle as of yet, because Corbin did attack Riddle backstage in an interview afterwards. So it looks like that Riddle and Corbin will be continuing. So yeah, it looks like the baby faces are moving up the ladder on SmackDown. What I would say as well from this point, when we look at this card here, everything felt very predictable, if I'm going to be honest. And I think in parts for me, I would say I enjoyed it, but what I would say is that I didn't really fully invest in everything I'd seen to this point, purely because I just didn't see the losers of the matches ever being creditable threats and actually winning themselves. So I felt at this point everything was kind of straightforward to where we needed to get. Next, though, for me was probably the most unpredictable match of the evening, but probably also one of the matches of the evening. I really enjoyed it. We had, of course, Bayley and Sasha Banks defending the Women's Tag Team Championships against Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Sold very well earlier in the match with Nia Jax with her knee. We saw as well with the combination of the teamwork and best friends of Bayley and Sasha Banks against two single stars who just weren't gelling together in Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. But as the match continued to unravel and we went a bit further forward, we could see that Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax were starting to gel together, and there was a point where they looked like they really believed themselves that they could win. And there was a real key moment in the match where Nia Jax kicked out of a pinfall, and you could just see with Sasha Banks and Bayley them looking at each other that this was the moment they knew there was a good chance that they could probably lose this match. And that's what went on to happen. Shayna Baszler making the hot tag, coming on in, had Sasha Banks' leg hooked so she couldn't be involved. Then she put in the Karafuda clutch onto Bayley, went back into the centre of the ring. Both women hooked in at the same time. Sasha managed to work her way around when she was going to try and, break off the move. But Baszler took her left arm and used Sasha Banks' left arm to assist in the clutch for Bayley to tap out. This was done beautifully and told so many stories at the same time. We had two, obviously, mismatched partners winning and gelling to win the tag team belts. We had, of course, Sasha Banks. Now we went from Sasha two belts Banks to no belts, and Bayley being the one to tap out so that she kind of has no more belts. Does Bayley really care about the Women's Tag Team Championships, or is it all about the Women's Championship for her? Maybe those tag belts didn't mean as much, really, in the big scheme of things. So you could see the disappointment in Banks. Even the commentary said we feel a little bit sorry for Banks. And, of course, we had a very weird celebration interview. Nia Jax just making pretty much a lot of noise, but certainly in amusing fashion nonetheless. But it'd be interesting to see what happens with the tag team dynamic going forward. I think we are going to go into now where Bayley and Banks are going to go on and have their feud. I can see it going on before the draft at this point. I think Baszler and Jax probably will go into a feud on Raw with the Riott squad, or as we say, Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott. And we'll have to wait and see how it's going to develop. But it looks like that Bayley and Banks will be remaining on SmackDown. Unless they get a rematch on Raw the next night, we'll have to wait and see. But very interesting stuff indeed. Keith Lee was next then. Of course, he had a little bit of a pep talk from JBL backstage, and he had a match with Randy Orton. And I was absolutely loving this because, I like the way the match was put together. Keith Lee managed to get some of his Arsenal win. You could see that Randy Orton wanted that respect with the hard slaps from Keith Lee. Yes, I would have to just take a little rewind. Keith Lee still had the same music, did have a similar time, but had his shorts on, even though he was still covered up. Look, let's ignore that stuff. It's not important. Let's look at the match itself. Like I said, at the start of the match, Keith Lee was getting his Arsenal in. Randy Orton was bumping and selling left, right and centre. Randy Orton did take control of the match, but then Keith Lee came back. He hit the Spirit Bomb, and shockingly, in my opinion, got the 1, 2, 3 and won absolutely clean here against someone who last week was challenging for the WWE Championship. Keith Lee has come in at the top level, beat the number one contender for the belt, and has just stood tall and stood up for Drew McIntyre. This is a big babyface win. This is a big moment in Keith Lee's career. I'd tell you what, he could wear a dress, he could come down to the ring to Kumbaya. If you're booking Keith Lee like that in matches and putting him over, it does not matter with the other side of things. Literally, Keith Lee right here may have had a star-making performance. Maybe not a star-making match, and it wasn't like a 5-star classic, but in storytelling, in what everything was represented, commentary was putting him over, and I must admit, I think the Spirit Bomb is a better finisher for Keith Lee. I would like to see that as his finisher going forward. Keith Lee here for me there's a big future here. You could even argue that he could be putting himself into championship contention. Would you be surprised to see a triple threat match between Drew McIntyre, Keith Lee and Randy Orton at Clash of Champions? I certainly wouldn't. I don't think it'd be misplaced. Keith Lee has come in at the deep end, and do you know what? He is swimming. He is definitely not sinking. For me, it was a big surprise, but I was so happy. I popped out of my seat and was very pleased to see Keith Lee pick up the victory. Next was the Mysterios, Dominic and Rey against Seth Rollins and Murphy. A fun, lengthy tag team match. Dominic Mysterio had a great performance here. That has to be put into this. Last week was more angle. This was more match. It was great to see. There was no retribution involved this time. We will touch on retribution very, very shortly later in the video, but we'll touch on this match first. I like the fact that this was very back and forth. It did feel like it could go either way for a number of near falls throughout this, but we did get to a point where Seth Rollins tagged Murphy in, wanted Murphy to kick, I believe it was Mysterio, in the head, but of course as they went to do the buckle bomb with the kick, completely missed. Rey got out of it, and actually it was Murphy that kicked Seth in the head. Murphy come in and then ended up losing the match, of course. Had the 619, and of course Dominic Mysterio hitting a frog splash, picking up the 1-2-3. So Dominic gets his first victory. The Mysterios pick up some retribution here. Mysterio, of course, Rey Mysterio takes on Seth Rollins the following night, tomorrow night on Raw, which of course now is going to be tonight. But what I liked as well is that Seth and Murphy teased themselves here, perhaps having a bit of, a bit of unhappiness after the match. Seth Rollins on his own, staring back at Murphy at the top of the rampway. Could there be a case where Rey picks up the victory on Raw? We move on to Seth versus Murphy. Seth is rumoured to be taking some time off near the birth with Becky Lynch of their child. So maybe just on the way out before Seth takes a little bit of a break, maybe he's going to make a start and put Murphy over as well. You wouldn't put it past at this point. And I'm really happy the way that this was booked, the way it was laid out. I thought that this was a very good match for Payback. And also, just to say very quickly as well, that throughout the night we had a situation with Paul Heyman being asked if Roman Reigns had signed the contract, what was going to be the situation with the main event. So it added lots of questions and question marks going in, and we actually got to the main event and still had the same questions being asked. The Fiend did his entrance, and Strowman attacked the Fiend during that entrance in the ring. The referee panicked and rung the bell, so there was no Roman Reigns at the start of the match. So it was just pretty much Wyatt versus Strowman, and it was actually just added an element of intrigue and excitement and wondering what is going to happen here. Some people may turn around and say that they didn't like this main event, and I can understand what would be your reasoning for it. If you wanted a straight up triple threat match, I would understand your feelings, but from storytelling purposes, I actually liked the way this played out, so I was quite satisfied with the main event. They continued with finishing moves backwards and forwards. The Fiend brought his mallet out, which I'm not really a big fan of the mallet, but still, into this, it was done in its own sort of way. It does add individuality to the character, I guess, of what they're going with, the larger-than-life Fiend character, so I will let it go. But we got to the point where perhaps something that's been overdone in the last 10 years. It's the third time I can recall it. The last time was on a Raw, I think, back in 2016 or 17. But Braun Strowman was on the top rope, and the Fiend did a superplex, and the ring completely, went to smithereens almost, completely collapsed with the two of their weight. Charles Robinson, absolutely hilarious. It was almost like a 220k glitch. He just completely flung himself over the top rope in hilarious fashion. This was the time that we got Roman Reigns' music come out. He came out with Paul Heyman. He signed the contract there and then, which of course you could say, well, there's a loophole. The contract wasn't signed before the match started. I don't mind. I get the point of where they're going with this. They want to emphasise Roman as a top heel. He came out with a steel chair as well. He wanted to try and get quick, clean pinfalls, as another referee was demanded to come down to the ring. And I just like the way it was played out. The superstars, Strowman and Fiend, were kicking out, so lots of chair shots have been hitting. And it looked like that, of course, that it was going to be done again on the Fiend, but the mandible claw was put in on the Fiend. Roman kicked the Fiend square in the balls, which took him out of the equation, and then we got a spear and a 1-2-3 and a brand new Universal Champion. This emphasised Roman as the heel. It said that he was an opportunist. He wasn't there for the match. He was there just simply to get the championship and come away. He wanted to do as least as possible to walk away with the belt. It's very anti what we've seen from Roman Reigns in the past. So for me, it's clear he's a heel. He's going to be a top heel. He's the champion. It makes the right booking sense. Strowman was the one that took the fall. The Fiend will look to try and get the championship back. We can move on now with the program of the Fiend versus Reigns, which I think will be quite interesting. Maybe the Fiend gets some sympathy here. What's also interesting with the Fiend is Alexa Bliss was watching backstage on the screen, looking like she was definitely caring what was going on with the Fiend during the match. So I'm interested of where the storylines are going to lead going forward here. It's more questions than answers, but certainly in my opinion, the right booking decision. Roman Reigns walking away as champion here. It just felt after SmackDown that a star level had gone up with Heyman being aligned here, him going heel. It just feels like we're going in the right direction on the main event scene on SmackDown, so I'm very pleased to see that. So I would hope to see we're going to see more of this going forward, and hopefully the Fiend versus Roman Reigns will be the main event of Clash of Champions. To give a rating out of 10, I would turn around and say that I think I would give this event a 7. I thought the matches, all of them pretty much on the main show, were fine. What I would say is that I felt that the first half of the show felt predictable. The second half of the show felt less predictable, more exciting, and definitely bumped up. But I think a lot of the results were the right results, and I think that this show was a placeholder for where they want to set things up going forward. I think that they've done that. I think they've achieved what they wanted to from this event, and I think that we can go looking forward to Raw and SmackDown with positivity, and I look forward to seeing what is going to be brought next in WWE as we head towards Clash of Champions, which is going to be on September 27th, so just under 4 weeks away now. We've got 4 shows each. We can start building it from starting tonight. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching here on SCW, the wrestling channel. If you enjoyed the show, let me know in the comments below what your favourite match was, what your highlights were. If you didn't enjoy it, what didn't you like about it? Let me know as well. Please share it with a friend. Please like, share and subscribe. This has been your WWE Payback review. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. And don't forget, Q&A is out for you right now. There's other videos to go and check out as well during this week if you're an AEW fan. All Out predictions will be coming out later in the week. This Week in Wrestling will be on the way as well. So we'll be reviewing things like the NXT Super Tuesday. We'll be touching on what's happened with Raw and SmackDown as we start on the road to Clash of Champions. Lots of things to look forward to, so make sure to keep an eye here on SCW. I almost forgot Retribution, didn't I? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll just add it onto the end of the video very, very quickly. They weren't featured anywhere in this show. We've been talking for weeks, George and I, on these podcasts that we've been doing on the channel, saying Payback was the place to get Retribution, to get the answers to what they're looking for. Maybe a motive, not necessarily a reveal of superstars, but maybe just some sort of placement, not involved in the show whatsoever. For the second show in a row, they weren't on SmackDown either. What's going on with Retribution? Maybe they're going to be dropped. Maybe it's a storyline that's not going to happen. Maybe management have not had faith in it as fans, have not necessarily reacted in the best way to Retribution. Maybe because people have worked out who is under those masks. I'm not quite sure what it is, but they weren't featured on this show either. It starts to make you think, what is going to happen with this group? Is it going to be something important? Is it going to work out to be anything? Or even worse, could it end up like the Hacker and no result whatsoever? WWE needs to be very careful with those sort of things because, unfortunately, if they do something where they completely drop the angle mid-flow once again, fans will start to care less when they start to try and do big angles like this. So it's a little bit of a concern here that they weren't featured at all. I was expecting them in the show. Payback is supposed to be Retribution. You'd have felt it was a natural fit, like a hand in the glove. But it just didn't happen, and I'm not quite sure why. So I'm a bit disappointed they weren't featured in it. I should have actually mentioned it a bit earlier. It does fall into why the show, again, was only 7 out of 10. I think if they'd have been included and we'd have got a message and a motive, that would have definitely bumped the pay-per-view up another point. But I wanted to add that in at the end. Sorry that I didn't actually mention it when I should have done, but I made sure I got it in better late than never, as they say. But that's it from me anyway. I am going this time for sure. I'll see you next time here on YouTube.com. Take care.